Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to a pseudo arcade restoration series. These aren't obviously video games, but they kind of fall in that same neighborhood as arcade machines and video games. So what do I have here? Well, I picked all of these up from a seller on Craigslist that was selling. He had a huge lot of these. I guess you would call them novelty machines, and he was looking to kind of get out of it. He had restored a couple, like this guy here, but for the most part, he didn't want to mess around with these anymore. So he wanted to sell them all as like a bulk deal, and I've seen these once, maybe twice before. They don't pop up very often, but I particularly remember seeing these as a kid and have a weird nostalgia for them. So I couldn't pass it up. He gave me a killer deal along with a bunch of extra parts. Actually, everything you see here is not everything that I got. I've got some duplicates. I've got another one of these, a couple extras of these guys here, and a couple more of these, and along with a bunch of extra parts. So I always remember seeing these in malls, especially like in nutrition stores or drug stores, even like these love testers and, well, I never saw one of these, but a couple of the more novelty, love testers, grip test, strength testing machines, fortune tellers. I remember seeing a lot of those in restaurants. I particularly have a vivid memory. I grew up in a city called St. Cloud, and there was a restaurant called Mexican Village, obviously a Mexican restaurant, and they had, I think, a grip tester or a love tester and a fortune teller machine that, had a kind of a fake crystal ball that you would put your hand over. So I have a weird nostalgia for these, even though I never really played them. And so I picked all these up, and for the most part, all of these here, with the exception of this guy, works. I have a couple extras of, I have another one of these personality analyzers, and it's just missing a power supply, otherwise it works. So I don't have, all the extra machines that I have are kind of parts machines, so to speak. I am hoping that I get a couple of these working, because this is the only one that doesn't work, and this is a really cool machine. Like, I just absolutely love these attract modes, all of these animations. Just, I mean, that's probably one of the coolest things about them. You don't even have to play these, they just look cool. But anyways, I want to kind of get these fixed up, and I'll talk a little bit about these briefly, and then I'll talk about what I want to do with these. So first off, this guy here is done. The seller completely repainted this one, touched it up. It's in full working shape. I mean, everything is real clean on it. And so this one's all set to go. I don't have to do anything with this one. But this is kind of a two-in-one, so to speak. You've got kind of a love tester. Basically, you slide your middle finger inside this holder here, and then it gives you kind of a pulse reading, that it's based off of, and then you match that up with these numbers here, and it'll tell you, basically the higher, the lower it goes, the weaker it is. So if you have a high, score, like over 100, it says cold shower time. So, it's kind of a gimmicky love tester. Then you've got this stress test, which uses 2 fingers, just like this stress test over here. And to my knowledge, it measures moisture on your fingers. So, I guess the gimmick that the seller was telling me is, if you want to really mess with people, just, lick your fingers before you stick it on you, or whatever, So that's the stress test. Now, he gave me a bunch of these extra cardboard inserts that basically go over here. So a lot of these, actually most of them, used the same sensors to do, and they would just, call it something else. So if I didn't want a love tester and I didn't want a stress test, well, I could put this guy over here. Now this side is a love tester, and this one is kind of, well, it's called a nervous wreck, but it's kind of like a stress test. But I didn't end up doing that, even though I think that's really cool. that they used, just different inserts. But I didn't want to do that because that would cover up this cool heartbeat LED animation. And like I said, the attract modes on these are, if not the coolest aspect of them. So that's this guy. I've got two of these. Then this one's called a personality analyzer. And like I said, I've got one more of these. It works. It's just missing a power supply. And unfortunately, they use these weird shaped power supplies. I don't have an extra one. But this one, and don't get, hopefully you can see this, but don't get it in your head that it's a Simon machine. It looks like that because it's got the 4 colored buttons. But the way this works is you obviously put a quarter in, and then you're supposed to push all 4 of these buttons in whichever order that you want. You have to push all 4 colors just in whichever order. And based on that order, it will tell you what your personality is. So, it'll on this LCD display at the top here, it'll spit out a few sentences of, your personality. So, for instance, if I pushed, the 4, it might say, well, you're eager to get things done, but you have a short temper or something. It'll spit out a few sentences. It's actually very, very funny, and I haven't seen the same sentences yet. So I mean, there's a ton of different combinations. So it's a cool machine. Now, one thing that's interesting about this one and the other one I have is that there are 2 different revisions. This one has a backlit LCD display. The other one does not. And if you look at the boards, they are different revisions. So I thought that was kind of cool that they actually, upgraded them over time. This heart rate monitor is probably the one I saw the most. I would always see it in front of nutrition stores and drugstores. These were very, very common when I was growing up. And this one just basically measures your heart rate, your pulse. Now this one's a love tester, and it's got this cool heart animation. And basically, again, it uses a finger sensor, and it'll spit out a number between 1 and 10. 10 being, you're out of control, 8 to 9, you're hot stuff. So the higher the number, the better you are. and then of course another stress test. It's just more of a single machine with a diagonal line instead of a straight up and down. And again, that uses 2 fingers. And then this is another love tester, and this is probably, it's unfortunate that this one doesn't. It's unfortunate that this one does not work because it's got the coolest animated marquee I've ever seen. I mean, out of all these, this is the king. This one comes close, but it's just so cool. You got Cupid shooting the heart. But anyway, so obviously that works, but the game itself does not. And I've really tried to get working. Like I said, I've got 2 more of these. And between the 3, I've probably got 2 complete machines with the parts that I've got. Now, I know a buddy of mine, an arcade buddy, his name's Adam. He's got a website, onecircuit.com, I believe, and also a YouTube channel, One Circuit. And he's an engineer. He's a super, super, super smart guy, way smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff. And he's got all the tools and stuff that he can troubleshoot different chips and what have you. And he's been kind enough to offer to take a look at it. So down the road, I'm going to be sending him some parts, probably a complete machine and some extra parts. And I really hope he gets at least one of these going, maybe 2. So, because it is such a cool machine. And this top part only takes power, but if that's the only thing that works, what am I going to do? Just like put it on display, So I really hope he gets that one going. Now that brings up an interesting point. This one's made by a company called Mr. Vend. And they were kind of one of the big producers of these machines back in the early to late 80s. I don't know if they are still making them in the early 90s. And then all of these here are made by Compuvend, which was another competing vendor for these novelty machines, we'll call them. And so I've got a couple more of these. I've got another incomplete machine, But I want to start by restoring all of the Compuvend stuff because all of these work, and all they need is cosmetic work. Because let's be, realistic. These things are filthy. They're so dirty. Like this personality analyzer, the paint at the top is chipped. It's all scuffed up. Love tester is just completely filthy. I mean, they're all pretty darn gross. Let's be fair. So my plan of attack is this. I want to first strip these down. I want to take all the parts out, and there's not many parts. They're very, very simple in that regard. So I want to first take them all apart, get them down to their frames, and then obviously clean everything, and then eventually repaint them and get them looking nice and neat. And I have kind of a plan for doing that. So the first thing I want to do is let's get these all taken apart, and then I can show you the insides of them and kind of more or less what they comprise of. It's actually very, very, very simple. So let me get a different camera lens and get set up, and let's start working on these guys. All right, so this is the standalone stress tester, the blue one. Everything's unplugged. So let's open this guy up here and take a look what's inside. Okay, so actually scoot this out here a little bit for you. So pretty simple. I mean, let's take this out. This is just the little coin bucket. Some of these are missing the coin buckets. I'd say about half of them have them and half don't. So anyways, let's take that off and put that off to the side. So here's our little tiny power supply. It's very small actually, just this little guy here. Here's a little fuse. And then we've got basically all the guts are on this one board. And there's really not a lot to it. It's basically, just your LEDs. There are a couple pots. This one, I'm not sure what it does. On like, say the personality analyzer, I couldn't think of it. That one's got a pot for the contrast of the little LCD screen at the top. So I'm not sure what this one does, but they all have one or two pots. And then it's just, this one's got a couple of caps on it, but that's really all there is to it, other than the front, the sensor, which plugs right in here. So yeah, let's take this thing apart. Let's see here. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect everything. These can be a little tricky here. Okay. I'm going to grab my wrench here. It's hard to get a good angle on these sometimes. All right. And these guys should pop right back out here. Sometimes you have to wiggle them a bit. Go. Okay. Now this power supply is held on by, it looks like a couple of small nuts here. Actually, probably can't see that. Let me adjust the camera here. And let's also pump up the brightness a little bit there. Okay, so let's see here. We're looking for That one's a little bit too small. Of course, it's usually the last one that I find in here that fits. I think these are all the same, actually. And that seems to be a winner. Okay. Okay, there's one. Let's see, is there a second one? No, I think that's it. Okay. And then this front one here. Okay. There's our power supply, just this little tiny thing here. Yeah, I think this, I can't remember what the voltage is. I know I measured it. I know there's 12 volts and I want to say 5, or was it 3.3? And at any rate, it's just a really small power supply. It's got a fuse here, and then it's got a built-in counter too for the coins. And I'm sure you can't see this, but it looks like 137,644 plays. Now, let's see, doing the math, you know, because this is a quarter. Boy, that's... All right, well, you guys do the math. But this game does not have free play, so you have to coin it up with a quarter. You cannot, there is no free play setting, which, you know, makes sense. I mean, who in the right mind would, back in the 80s, own something like this in their house? Probably no one. And now, of course, here I am with these. So speak for myself, I guess, right? Okay, so there's the power supply. And then we've got our little speaker here. Granted that I don't think, oh no, this does make a couple of beeps. Most of these don't make that many noises. I think the coolest noises is that pink love tester machine, because that one actually makes all these like kind of touch tone, you know, telephone sounds. It's pretty cool. Even when you boot it up, it's got a little sequence that goes through. I'm just taking out all these nuts here. Okay, there's our teeny weeny little speaker. Now let's unplug the sensor on the front there. Okay, so let's probably take this board off next. It looks like it's got flathead screws there. Let's see, okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's it. I'll probably put all these like in a little bag or something so I don't lose them, and try to keep them all, for the most part, together, parts-wise. I mean, all of these, for the most part, all these Compuvend, these smaller units, they all use the same frame, but the mounting holes are a little bit different. But for the most part, this whole frame, all of them are identical. So I'm sure it'd be pretty easy to get them mixed up, but at the same time, you could probably figure it out pretty quickly which one is which, or if nothing else, they're probably interchangeable, at least just the frame. The mounting plates, after we get past this, might be a little bit different, but I think for the most part they're all kind of interchangeable. Again, there's no documentation I can find on these, so I could just be blowing everything out of my ass. Okay, so, oh, we've got one power connector here. Okay, and there's, I mean, this is it. This is the whole entire game. Now there's actually, let's see, I'm counting 1, 2, 3. 3 pots on the front and then this one on the back. And again, I have no idea what they do, but yeah, that's the heart of the stress tester. You know, this tiny little, what is this, maybe 7 inches by 7 inches? Pretty small. So I'm gonna put that off to the side carefully. Okay, so now here's our, this is just our coin mech, so to speak. It's got a little circuit on the side, and it's a really interesting design. It doesn't actually use a switch like most coin mechs and arcade video games use, but it's got a little sensor, so it detects when a quarter slides through. But I'm not sure exactly how it works to reject a coin. It must have to be a certain size to just be able to slide through there. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's pretty slick and really tiny. Okay, let's see here. Take this off. Oh, this one's being stubborn. There we go. Okay, there's that. And then on the front is this guy here, the little plate that goes over the front where you would insert your quarter. And okay, so now we should take off this front, is that plastic? Could be plexiglass. It's a little front plate here. It's convenient that I always use the same size nut. I should really write down which bit I'm using now so I don't have to dig through them all, but me being ignorant, I'll probably forget. Too lazy. I do remember seeing this unit as well. I'd usually see this one right next to that heart rate tester, right outside. I specifically remember there was, I don't think, it might have been a GNC. I don't know how long GNC's been around. There was a nutrition store in the Crossroads Mall in St. Cloud that I remember, and they for sure had the heart rate, but I'm pretty sure they also had this one right next to it. Okay, so here's our front plate. Now this will need some cleaning. It's in pretty good shape, but it looks like a little bit of rust. I mean, this spot here, it's not going to be perfect. I'll clean it up as best I can, but you know, there's not a whole lot I can do. It is what it is. I guess you could call it patina, but oh, it looks like 1984. So this came out in '84. Cool. All right. Have to be careful with that. I don't want to damage it any further. Now, we should be able to get, yeah, okay, and this is just plexiglass, it looks like. That should clean up all right. Doesn't look like any super terrible scratches. Oh, you can actually see, I don't know if you guys can see this, there's this long streak from those LEDs. I don't know if that's from heat causing this, that's like a stain. Huh, that's kind of cool. Oh yeah, and here's where the paint chipped. You know, if I can clean this up, I might be, since that paint is on here, I wonder if I'm real careful, if I clean this up, that everything will line up and you won't see as much, you won't see these all chipped, but it's kind of a long shot. Wishful thinking. Okay. All right, so the only thing that's left now is, well, is the front control panel and our finger sensor. Now, the control panel is held down. You can't see this. There's 4 wing nuts, which is convenient because I'm not sure how you would unscrew it. All right, there's 1. Two. Three. And 4. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this around here. Now this guy should just, yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's our basically our real basic control panel. I am going to take this sensor off because I'm going to want to clean that, and I'll need that off to access everything here when I repaint this. So I wonder exactly how, you know, what kind of a signal this is sending back. You know, it's just two cords here with a, you know, a little plug that goes into the PCB, the main circuit board. So I'd be curious to know exactly what kind of a signal that is. You know, how does it measure, if it does measure moisture, how does it do it? You know, everything's an electrical signal. I'm sure someone knows the answer. It's probably something real simple. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay. Put that off to the side. And this should, okay. So, wow, all right. Quite a difference. You can see how much of a contrast, how dirty this thing really is. Now, I'm planning on painting all these white to match that double unit, but it looks like these were originally painted more of a beige / cream, but I think they'll look really sharp white. And these control panels I'm going to be doing all together on their own because they're going to take some planning. My plan is, because I don't want to lose this hand outline. It'd be real easy to just sand this whole thing and just paint it white and be done with it, but I want to save this. And so my plan for that as of right now is to use some of this hobby liquid mask that basically can cover up this outline, and then I can just paint this whole thing, take that mask off, and this won't be damaged, because this is actually, there's not much, if any, chipping or, it's perfect, this outline, and I want to hold on to that. I may actually touch that up, but that seems, that's about the best plan I can think of to preserve that. So that's kind of the goal, the method I'm going to do. And I'll actually, let me set this off to the side. I'm actually going to do that too. You see there's a Compuvend logo here. This will probably need a little bit touch up, but I'm going to use that liquid mask here as well. So, but yeah, that's basically the shell. I need to take this, oh, you can't even see that. I need to take this lock off here. They all use the, well, they all use this round style lock, kind of like the Nintendo locks. There. So, got to hang on to those. But I think for the most part, the rest of this will clean up really easily, and painting shouldn't be much of a problem. I do want to, I've been thinking a lot about this, and these have a very, kind of like a single stage, almost like the red tent had as far as the paint goes, but it does sand off fairly easily. And since there is some chipping and nicks and stuff, it doesn't really need Bondo, and I'm not going to do any Bondo work, but I do think I'm going to try to sand all of these down to the bare metal. That way I can just do a clean prime and a clean once over paint, maybe a couple coats, and again, just white. And I may do a clear coat over that as well. But, I'm going to do these all at once, so I don't see it taking real long. But anyways, so we got this stress tester all stripped down. I'm going to kind of bag up these parts so they all stay together. And then I'm going to go through and proceed to strip the rest of the games. And you don't need to see that, obviously. So let me go do that, and we'll come back after I'm done. Okay, so I have finished stripping all these cabinets down, and believe me, it took me a lot longer than I expected, mostly because there's a lot of like little tiny parts that are hard to reach, little screws, little nuts, but it also took me a while because I wanted to keep everything organized, and so separating everything and making sure I didn't get parts mixed up took a little bit longer. But anyways, all of these are done. They're all stripped. It's just these metal cabinets. And so what's the next plan of attack here? I think what I'm going to do is select 4 of the best condition cabinets that are respective, obviously, to their specific game. But I'm only going to select 4 that I'm going to restore, because it doesn't make any sense for me to spend the time and the labor to restore all of these cabinets if I'm only going to be able to produce 4 working machines. And I don't know the next time I'm going to come across, if any time, I'm going to come across the parts that I need to get all these up and running. So just for now, I'm only going to do 4, and I can hang on to these cabinets and the extra parts and store them in case that opportunity ever arises, or just to keep them as backups. So with that in mind, it should be it's fairly easy to select which 4 here, but I want to point out a little bit of the differences, because although all of these cabinets in general are the same, they're identical, there are some differences. And just starting over here, if these are the 2 love testers, and their control panels are actually rounded. They only have 4 studs in them in the corners, and they fit in this recessed spot. Now this is the only model of all these that is like that. So I have to keep that in mind. I have to keep this with this cabinet. I can't just take this control panel and throw it on one of these guys. So that's different. The other thing is the logo on this one, this Compuvend logo at the bottom, is a unique logo to this model for whatever reason. And what I mean by that is that if you look at the Compuvend logo, specifically the Vend, the little red line that goes across the end at the top, it ends at the D. And on the heart rate and the stress tester, that red line goes well beyond the D, and then it also says Enterprises Inc. underneath. So they have kind of unique logos to the model of, game. So I want to make sure I preserve all that. So the Love Tester has that rounded control panel and then the short logo. The heart rate monitor does not have a recessed portion of the cabinet that it sits in, the control panel that is. So it just rests on top, but it uses six studs to sit in there, and so that by itself is unique. Both the heart rate and the stress tester use that same platform, but of course the finger sensor is different as well as the hand, and the Compuvend logo, of course, like I was just saying, has that different red line that goes across well beyond the D on Vend. So obviously I have to keep these two in their respective units, and I'm going to restore both of these. I don't have extras, so I have to be careful, but these are in pretty good shape. Now moving over to the personality analyzer, these obviously also have a unique control panel. Now the studs line up with these guys here, but one thing to keep in mind is these actually don't even have a logo at all on the front. So, I don't know if these were made earlier or later or what, but they don't even have a Compuvend logo on them. So that's kind of, it's kind of an interesting deal. But anyways, I think what I'm going to do is, it's pretty easy for me to decide which ones I'm going to select, because obviously I have to do both the heart rate and stress tester. So that's two. Of the Love testers, I'm going to select this guy here, mostly because the logo on this one is much better than this one. So it makes sense to stick with that one. It's always easier to restore something if it's already in decent or better condition. So I'm going to stick with this one. Also, the control panel on this guy is a bit better, but I could always swap them. It's mostly the logo that made the decision easy. On the personality analyzer, it's pretty obvious. I'm going to select this guy here because this one has a lot of paint that's already chipped, which isn't a big deal, but it has some pitting and some rust, and that makes me a little cautious because I don't want to do any Bondo if I can avoid it. And most of these are actually very, very, very smooth, but I'm still going to sand them down as smooth as I can, and then obviously prime, paint, and probably throw clear coat to protect them. Now, that's my basic strategy or my plan of attack for the overall cabinets, but the control panels themselves are a whole nother animal, and the biggest reason for that is you've got these these painted outlines of these hands on these testers. Same with the Love testers have the painted on handprint, and so I want to preserve that. And then I also don't want to paint over that. I don't want to destroy that. I kind of want to touch it up. So it's going to be really challenging to do that. And I still want to do the same thing with the logos. I'm going to have to mask that out as well. But I do have a general plan of attack that's going to involve like some liquid masking, and it shouldn't be a big deal. I think I'm first going to mask as much of the panel in general out, with the exception of the outline, and I can touch those up, and then I can paint over the panel after masking the outline up. But the real bitch is going to be these personality analyzer control panels, because they have not only a border on the outline similar to the palm prints, but they've got all of the instructions. Basically, like everything is printed, screen printed on this control panel. And there's some really small text in here too. So I really have no idea how I'm going to preserve that. And how, it's impossible. You can't really mask this out, not easily at least. It's not real practical. So I'm kind of, scratching my head how I'm going to do that. And the one thing I'm worried about, here's a good reason to have two of these cabinets, one as a backup and only restore one. The biggest thing I'm worried about is that if I get this whole cabinet looking pretty, I want to paint these white. And if I get this all looking, shiny and brand new, but I can't do anything with the control panel without ruining all of the border and the text and everything that's painted on here. If I can't do anything with this, it's really going to stand out and look ugly. So I need to figure out how I can tackle that. But and I've got a couple of ideas. I'm just not sure they're going to work. So I'm going to roll those ideas around in my head and see if I can figure out something that's a bit more practical. So I think I'm going to end here. Next video, we're going to start working on these cabinets, on the 4 that I want to restore, which means probably a lot of sanding, probably some priming paint, maybe a clear coat. And then I'm going to work on these control panels later, probably a different video, because those are going to be a bit more involved. So that's kind of what's in the hopper, and I think we'll kind of go from there. So I just want to say thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching any of the other videos on my channel, and subscribing if you have or want to. There's all kinds of different videos on my channel, not just arcade related stuff. But anyhow, that's all I've got. So until the next video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.